We have yet another day of severe weather on the way. It's all ahead of a cold front that will be coming in during peak heating of the afternoon. So, we're going to walk you through the details, plus, take a look at your weekend and into early next week. So, if you look at the satellite picture this morning, we do have some morning convection that's coming out of areas of Iowa back into Missouri. These aren't severe, but they do associate it with some lightning strikes associated with those stronger thunderstorms. This is still the morning convection. We're all waiting for this cold front that's setting up across areas out west. It's pretty clear out west. You're actually going to be experiencing some chillier, cooler, but nicer weather back behind this front. But as we head into peak heating of the afternoon, we should start to see supercell thunderstorms start to ignite in those areas across Illinois, back into Missouri, and those will tend to backbuild further south into Oklahoma, into Arkansas, and into Texas as we head into peak heating. So here's the setup from the Storm Prediction Center. They do have the elevated risk for enhanced supercell thunderstorms that does pose a tornado threat within the enhanced risk for those areas into Missouri, back into Illinois, as well as into Indiana, portions of Kentucky, as well as portions of Tennessee. Further south, we do have a slight risk for severe weather. Those will pose more of a damaging wind threat and a larger hail threat as you get further south, especially there in Texas into the hill country. They could be seeing some very large hail later on this afternoon into the evening time. But we do have an elevated tornado risk for those areas where they do have that enhanced risk. So it's a 5% probability. That means you could see an isolated spin up tornado with anywhere in this 25-mile radius of any given point within this sector, essentially from Springfield up to Missouri, back into Paducah, and those areas further south, and even into the Memphis region, back into Nashville, even up into Indianapolis. They do have a 2%. So don't let your guard down. We still could be seeing an isolated spin up tornado within this rotating supercells, especially after about 3 o'clock. So Missouri, as of right now, looks to be the favorite area as to have the greatest probability of seeing an isolated spin up tornado. But look at the temperatures, folks. It's going to be warm out ahead of this cold front. You can actually see where the cold front, I stopped it right here about 4 o'clock. Yes, back behind it, you got chillier conditions. That's 40s showing up on the map. And these are highs, folks. 40s for Montana, back in the Dakotas, portions of Colorado there, into Kansas. So you're going to be experiencing some 48-degree temperatures as you head into peak heating, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon there in Iowa. But look at the warm sector. We got 80s, if not 90s further south. That just shows you there's a lot of instability in the atmosphere waiting to tap into. And as we head into peak heating, that's when we should start to see supercell thunderstorms start to ignite. So we're going to dive deeper into the forecast. But first, a word from my sponsor. Today, we're diving deep into the topic of safeguarding our privacy in this digital whirlwind we call the modern age. That's why I'm stoked to introduce you to a game changer that changed my life, Aura, today's video sponsor. Let's keep it real. Before Aura, I was drowning in those pesky robocalls and my personal information constantly on my mind. It felt like a never-ending game of cat and mouse with privacy threats, then bam, Aura steps in. Aura isn't your average identity theft protection service. Nah, it's a whole new level. The minute I hopped on board, I could finally breathe easy, knowing Aura was on the grind, keeping my family's privacy on lockdown. Every week, they send me a weekly protection summary. And you can see they actually removed one removal just last week, but they sent it out to over 15 plus different brokers. Let me tell you, one of the best things about Aura, it's super easy to use. Everything I need to keep my family's privacy safe, right at my fingertips, from customizable alerts to the rock-solid vault where my information is safely secured and tucked away. Aura's got it all, and let me tell you, the drop-in robocalls is life-changing. Jump on their 2-week free trial and watch your peace of mind skyrocket. Head over to aura.com/pal and let Aura do all the heavy lifting. Trust me, you'll thank yourself. Let's band together against those sneaky online privacy threats, securing a safely digital frontier for all of us and our loved ones. Get locked in with OR today. Let's take a look at the CAPE values. This is your convective available potential energy in the atmosphere. So yeah, I showed you those temperatures, right? Those are plenty warm further south into Oklahoma and portions of Texas. You got CAPE values extending to the highest levels they've seen this year so far this season down there. That's the reason why we could see those supercell thunderstorms start to ignite within the warm sector and areas across the south, getting into Missouri and back into Illinois as we head into that 4 o'clock time frame. I will be going live for this setup, covering the entire sector of this line, essentially from Illinois back into Texas. So make sure you are subscribed to this channel and turn on notifications, because I will be going live probably about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So, but yeah, we should start to see numerous supercell thunderstorms start to explode within that boundary right around that 3 o'clock time frame, and these will likely dive southeast bound. So we do have that elevated risk for tornadoes within areas of Missouri, back into Illinois, as well as into Kentucky and western Tennessee. The lightning strikes are fairly intense, and there's the back build further south into Arkansas, into portions of Oklahoma, and getting there into Texas, where they do pose a larger hail threat within that warm sector, where they could be looking at 90 degrees further south. But the listening tracks have been pretty spot on. I mean, yesterday it was showing the most intense tracks right around central Ohio there, and did in fact have several tornado warnings and even some tornadoes spin up in the afternoon. There, but they are again. We do have that elevated risk right there into the St. Louis region, central Missouri, back into southeastern Missouri. That seems to be the favored target of the strongest updrafts, where you could see the rotating supercell thunderstorms that could unload a spin up tornado or two within that sector. Some larger hail associated with it, and that's going to be more scattered. That's the reason why they do, in fact, have that enhanced risk in place. Portions of Illinois and as well as portions of Indiana. But further south, you can see it's a little bit more isolated, right? You get further south into Arkansas, you get there into Oklahoma, those areas into Texas. You still pose that risk, but it's slight because it's more isolated in nature. Not everybody's going to see something, but where you could see some activity, those could pose some golf ball to possibly ping pong size hail. But there's the cold front, right? Yes, this is a cold front. This is April, and we still can get some chillier air at times. And this is actually fairly decent. It's actually a little bit more significant for, April standards. And you're going to feel it in a big way by the time we head into Friday morning. You can see the sharp gradient in temperatures as you wake up on Friday morning. So all those deep purple there, yeah, that is 20 degrees below average. So you're definitely going to be feeling, you're going to be needing the jackets. And honestly, these areas are going to be below freezing. So not unheard of for this neck of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but still, this cold front will actually drive all the way down to the deep south by the time we head into Sunday into Monday. There's Saturday. So it's a slow moving front. We have another initial push back behind the front. So the good thing is, back behind the front, it clears out as far as the severe storm. So I do feel this is going to be the last day for a while that we'll be talking about severe weather, because severe storms don't like cooler air, and that's what's going to be entraining much of the country. Those areas across the west and much of the desert southwest unfortunately miss out on this little cool spell, but those areas into the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S. are going to get into the action and start feeling the effects of this cooler conditions. But further south, that front is going to stall, and that when it stalls out, we tend to have some of these overrunning type setups, and that could pose a heavy rain threat for those areas further south into Texas, through Louisiana, back into Arkansas, as well as into Mississippi, into Tennessee, those areas into Alabama. Those could be some stronger thunderstorms, not severe, but definitely some heavier rains. I was looking at some of the PWatt values. That's your precipitable water available index of the atmosphere, and that's about 90 percentile, folks, for this time of year. That means there's an abundance amount of moisture within the atmosphere, and you can see the darker shade of greens. It's just a kind of a widespread super soaker for a good area of Texas and into Oklahoma and parts of Arkansas. This is be during the day on Saturday. So, and there's the cold front, right? It's not only going to be raining, but it's going to be a cooler, chillier rain. So now that extended push pushes further south. So these are actually high temperatures as you head into Saturday afternoon. Those are widespread 40s, if not 50s, replacing the warm sector there in Missouri as you clear out and experience some nicer conditions, although a little bit chillier this weekend. But you won't be dealing with any severe storms or even, in fact, any rain in those areas across Missouri. But further south within the warm sector and where that front is going to stall, that's where you're going to have that more of an overrunning type setup. So if we break this thing down for you, here is the precipitation just for Saturday. This is the 24-hour precipitation map. Notice it clears out pretty nicely. Where you're seeing the white here, those are more or less clear to cloudy skies. You won't be getting any precipitation out of that atmosphere. It's all along this front. So those areas further south, especially there into Texas, it just looks like a super soaker for at least Saturday, as the cold front will be stalling and you have that overrunning setup. And look at the map here at the bottom of the screen, anywhere from possibly 1 to 3 inches of more of a widespread heavy rainfall through areas of Texas and to Arkansas, back into Mississippi. But as this swings to Sunday, you got a good part behind it drying out. So the cold front shifts southeast and you got the clearer skies back behind it. So the rain should be done back behind this front. And now much of the southeast will be getting the rainfall. This is be that 24 hours on Sunday through good part of the southeast, much of Georgia, much of the Carolinas here, up through North Carolina, especially those areas across the south. But Florida will probably be missing out on the action because the front basically stalls into the panhandle, at least the northern tier. Further south, you won't be getting anything from this particular system. But many of you are going to be experiencing some cooler air by the time we wake up on Monday morning. This would be April the 22nd now. Look at the country, right? So this is probably going to be the last time you see such widespread cooler conditions for spring, right? We do warm up pretty quickly next week, and we're heading into almost May. So, you know, this is probably going to be your last cooler spell, at least further south, that you're probably going to be seeing until fall. Of course, areas further north, you're still going to get the cooler air in much of the Ohio Valley and much of the Northeast. But, those areas across south, it's probably likely the last time you're going to be seeing 45 degrees waking up in the southern portions of Mississippi, for the rest of spring. All right. So, but back behind it, there's Monday, right? So as you're dealing with all the rain and all the cooler conditions, the cold front will be gone out in the Atlantic by then, stalled out right there across that boundary. And look, you got widespread nicer conditions. So it's going to be a nice day ahead. This won't be until Monday. This will be April the 22nd, but it's going to be a definitely a nice day. So let's take a sneak peek of what's happening for next week. So we are going to be seeing another trough actually kind of dig down from Canada. So yes, those areas across the Ohio River Valley into those areas into the Great Lakes, portions of the mid-Atlantic and much of the Northeast is actually going to be experiencing another cool snap, a cooler conditions, while we got much of the southwest winds returning. So the southwest winds are that warm wind. Much of at least the middle part of the country is going to be warming up in a big way. But look what happens, folks. This is another trough. This is almost like a deja vu type setup. Another trough as the warm sector heats up in the middle of the country. We'll have this system move through. This won't be until next Friday. So this is the extended range, but we take a reprieve on the severe weather, but it definitely looks to be another possible severe weather setup, especially kind of getting going by next Friday into next weekend, because the trough will move out of the Northeast and much of the country of the Central and the Great Plains and much of the northern tier will be heating up in a big way as we have this, pretty significant cooler shot of air, another deepening trough that will come in. tapping into that warm sector. Look at those temperatures, right? So you got the trough out east, you got the cooler anomaly still unloading across those areas across the east. You're still going to be experiencing those cooler conditions, right? 10, 15 degrees below average. Well, much of the middle of the country. And look at this warm spell. I mean, not only for those areas across the south, but much of the central US, the Great Plains, and even all the way up into Canada. This is a pretty significant warm spell that will be unloading the deeper we get into next week, waiting for the next system. And this is definitely pretty concerning. We haven't seen these levels this spring. I mean, we're going into like peak severe weather season by the time we get to this time frame. This would be around the 28th time frame, right? April the 28th. Look at the dew points, folks. That is a massive. I mean, look at the surge of the 60s through Missouri, through Iowa, through Minnesota. I mean, the 60s dew points reach all the way to the Canadian border. That is a line of segment. Look at the dry line across the middle of the country. This could be a widespread event, folks. So nothing to be concerned about right now, but this is just something we're looking at in the extended range after this moves through, after we clear out, after we heat up by the middle of next week. We are looking for another possible event unloading across the middle of the country. And this would tap into a very warm sector that would push even further north into what we saw with this last event that reached all the way up into South Dakota. This could actually reach into North Dakota and even into Canada, folks, by the time we reach into the end of April. So, guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you have notifications on. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. I will be back about 3 o'clock covering the severe weather event today. So make sure you tune in for live coverage where I protect you before and after the storm.